Welcome, everyone, to our inaugural Blue Service. My name is Reverend Jocelyn Spence, and I serve as the Director of Mental Health and Wellness for the National Benevolent Association of the Christian Church Disciples of Christ. And as our mental health and wellness program emphasizes accompanying people with compassionate care for their holistic well being, I'm so grateful for our time tonight, which will offer a gentle and reflective space for those who are navigating grief during this holiday season. And so it is my great honor to introduce a certified grief coach, Reverend Dr. Rae Karim, and licensed therapist, Reverend Ivey, two incredible souls with great expertise around leading people through experiences of grief and so much more, as clergy people dedicated to accompanying others and transforming lives with deep care. Thank you, Dr. Rae and Reverend Lee, for being here with us this afternoon or evening, wherever y'all are joining us from. Also want to note that you can follow along during automated transcription using AI generated captions. So if you need that, please look for the CC button at the bottom of your screen. And at last, I would like to ask that you make sure that you remain on mute throughout our time together until our facilitators have noted a time to come off of mute and share. Hand it over to you all now.
Good evening to everyone who is on. Very thankful for the opportunity to be able to facilitate this Blue Christmas gathering, if you will, with my fellow colleague, Reverend Lee Ivey. And thank you to Reverend Jocelyn Spence for the opportunity to be in this space. We are going to start with a centering. And this centering is called I Am Giving You Me. It is from Stages on the Way, from the Wild Goose Resource Group and based on the Iona community. And so if you would just take a moment to take a couple of deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth, and I will ask that you hear these words with your ears and in your heart. I am. I am giving. I am giving you me. I am giving you me, Lord. I am giving you me in the twinkle of my eye and the sadness of my sighing, in the laughter of my heart and the tears of my soul. In the rhythms of my feet and the silence of my listening, I am giving you me. I am giving you me in the promises I keep and the insults that I pardon, in the good news that I share and the confidences I protect, in the remembering of gracious things and the forgetting of forgiven sins. I am giving you me, Lord. I am giving you me in the young ones I kneel beside and the old ones I sit with, in the unborn ones I pray for and the dying ones I pray with, in the bright ones I wave to and the hurting ones I touch. I am giving you me. I am giving you me in the mint song, in the quiet pause, in the special moment, in the nod of life to your will, and still I am giving you me in the stuttered prayer and the lingering doubt and the dry days of the spirit and the contradicted hopes. I am giving you me, Lord. I am. I am giving. I am giving you. I am giving you me. I am giving you me, my brothers and sisters. I am giving you me in the beauty of the earth and the ugliness of the wooden cross, in the in the fullness of 4 seasons and the emptiness of a garden tomb, and the warmth of the weak and the rejection of the mighty, in the company of God's people and the solitude of a place apart. And sometimes when a stone wall confronts you, I am giving you me, praying on the other side. God, may the love you have for me be in them, so that I may also be in them, and they in us. I am giving you me.
In the same spirit of the words shared by Dr. Rae, if we could share in a prayer together. Dear God, we, in this act of giving you ourselves, you know the intricacies of who we are. Though we may present at times like life is full of green pastures and still waters, we know some valleys. Dear God, we know that we've journeyed this path sometimes right next to the shadows of death. Dear God, we invite in this moment the discomfort that we might have called evil at times. We invite this discomfort. We invite um, all the things that we have experienced into this moment. We invite the grief. We invite the things that we don't want to deal with. And whatever that might look like for us, dear God, because we are giving you ourselves. And in that act, you know all that is encompassing of that. Dear God, we're hopeful in this moment that in this act that you've prepared this table of within a Zoom link, this table within all that have gathered here from all parts of the United States, Canada, and who knows where else. That this table be like oil shed over the head, that we may feel refreshed. Dear God, we thank you for allowing our cup to overflow. We thank you that even in the midst of the hard things that we're navigating, surely it's your goodness and your mercy that shines and causes us to feel your unfailing love. Let this moment achieve those things. It's in your name that we ask these things. Amen and amen.
And so, this is a Blue Christmas gathering acknowledging that the history of this gathering has to do with us being able to acknowledge and bring to the table our grief. And so I am going to start in that regard by giving you the definition that I use or work with as it concerns grief. And so the definition that I use is that grief um, is the natural response to loss, change, and transition that results in the expression of feelings and emotions. So it is a natural response to loss, to change, and to transition that results in the expression of feelings and emotions. Now, I want to add something to that definition because a lot of times we think that loss only has to do with what? Death. However, life has definitely let us know that loss can be experienced in a myriad of ways, whether that is loss of identity, loss of the sense of security, loss of an opportunity, loss of a job, the change or transition within a job, moving from one place to another. A person may go to the doctor today and get news that they were not wanting to receive on tomorrow, and that, my friends, is something that can cause grief. Unfortunately, as we watch the news here lately, there is a lot of grief in our own country, and as well as grief abroad, not just because of the violent things that are taking place. But if we just look at some of the things that are taking place in our government, that is grievous, right? For some of us who are here in the Midwest, that -2-degree temperature that showed up caused grief, okay? Because it can. And so I named that to name that you really can grieve anything. And as long as your response to grief is not causing any intentional harm to yourself, to anyone else, to any property, any pets or possessions, then the way that you grieve is the way that you grieve. So keep this in mind as we go through the rest of this gathering, that grief is about loss, change, and transition, and that loss does not just have to do with death.
And so with that said, I'd like to ask you two questions. What are you grieving, and where do you feel it in your body? And I invite you to put this in the chat. What are you grieving, and where in the body, where in your body do you feel it? So we can totally talk about some of the things that you've named here, Miss Rae, where Dr. Rae, where you're talking about a person might be grieving what's happening in another country. It's totally grievable. And then where do you feel it in your body? And maybe what you feel in your body, um, it could be a myriad of things from a shock, a pressing, a pounding, a yeah. Thank you. I just invite you to put it in the chat though. What are you feeling? What are you grieving? And where do you feel this in your body? And I'd like to name some of your um, offerings of words in the chat. Just because you never know who else is going through a similar thing. You never know. It could be that um, that loss of a job. It could be that loss of a way of life. It could be that loss of the last bite of food. Look, that sandwich went hard. That you got to the last bite and fumbled, and then here we are. I'm just saying, it can be literally anything. Grief, that's the beauty of grief, if I can say it that way, that it can cover a multitude of concerns and experiences. And so, just to name a few things that I'm seeing coming up in the chat, I thank you for your vulnerability. I thank you for your authenticity because you didn't have to share any words. And if you're not sharing words, I just want to give you grace because it's okay. Maybe you don't have the words to, I mean, sometimes just typing it out is too hard to do. So I honor where you at. I want you to honor where you're at yourself. Give yourself the grace. So I see, um, uh, if I may say your name, Miss Debbie, I lost my mom on December 5th. I'm still numb and not feeling it anywhere. Those are real words. I thank you. And I'm grateful for your sharing. You didn't have to, once again. But to feel numb after losing a parent, my God. I wonder who else can feel that pain. I wonder who else can resonate with that experience. The unexpected loss of my mother and depths of my soul. Yes, that's, man, soul pain. My goodness. Please stay after this session for the soul medicine session. I need you to get that. There's something there that you might need. Um, my mom feeling the solar plexus. My goodness, pain, ache, and sense of yes, emptiness. Not as acute as it was. I hear that, and so this is important. This is an important exercise as we navigate our daily because it might not show up all the time as a shooting pain in the arm that is very noticeable. Sometimes it shows up in a bad attitude, feeling angry, feeling irritated for no reason. And we're like, oh my goodness, I just went off on these people and I don't even know why. We got to sit with ourselves. And that's kind of what we're inviting us to do in this moment is to sit with ourselves and become aware of what is happening in the body and connecting it to the why. I thank you all for showing up in this moment and speaking about it. Um, as we navigate what this pain is, what this grief is, how we're experiencing in the body. Then we get into how it shows up, how it manifests in our daily lives. And that's kind of what I was just speaking about, and it shows up in how we treat our kids and how we treat our family members, how we treat our friends. Maybe we find ourselves more isolated in this season, and that's okay. Can we honor where we are and allow ourselves to be there? And sometimes we give ourselves permission to press beyond where we are and invite community and invite that loved one and that friend. And so, if I can ask you to place your hand on that part of your body where you feel that grief, place your hand there. Um, and maybe sometimes we have to literally touch that part of the body, and maybe it's like give it a little massage, give it a little shake. Sometimes we got to wake up that part of the body. Sometimes we have to allow it to feel something again. I remember reading a comment about being numb, and so there's this method of tapping, and so we might tap ourselves to wake up again, to feel something again. And if I can feel that tapping, even if it's just a tapping, it doesn't hurt, it doesn't cause me any pain, but it does serve as a reminder that I can feel. My goodness. And sometimes that's a really major reminder. Um, this is an opportunity, I think, in this moment to honor what we're feeling, to locate it in the body, and to name what it is that's happening right there, and then to invite that part of the body into our healing process. And that I think that's what's important for this here blue service, for us to know how to locate our pain in our body and to know that we can do something about it.
And so, um, I feel like this is going really fast, and I just want to give you all a moment.
Mhm.
I want to give you all a moment as Reverend Lee named, commending your, what I'll call your courage and your vulnerability to not only be in this space, but to also share in this space. Um, it is always, there is something healing, there is something helpful, there is something hopeful about being in community, knowing that you are not the only person who is experiencing this thing. You may not be experiencing it the same way somebody else is, but there's a comfort, there's a confidence in knowing that you are not in this alone. And so I just want to sit in this moment and just allow us to take that in, that I am not the only person who experienced the loss of my parents, right? I saw that someone was put in the chat that their dog is dying or has died. I'm not sure which one it was, and my apologies. I would have to go up, but that Reverend Jocelyn, acknowledged that because she understands, or can relate to that experience. And so, again, we acknowledge both the courage and the vulnerability that you all have put in this space. And we just want to sit with that and acknowledge the community and the support, even though we are in boxes and we cannot touch each other physically. We are together in this space of grief and in this space of the grief experience. It is such a beautiful irony, such a divine irony, what Reverend Lee said about placing your hand on that place, because the next part of this is for us to speak to that part. And that was literally what I typed in my notes, for us to be able to place our hand to put your hand on the place where the pain is. I heard, and I'm just gonna to name what I saw in the chat, the chest and the stomach, the solar plexus, the depth of the soul. A couple of people named in the chest, the heart, the throat, and overall tiredness, and everything hurts. So wherever you can place your hand, by all means, in the back. So wherever you can place your hand, place your hand on the place, on the spot where the pain is. And if it's more than one place and you are able to place, one hand in one area and one on the other, by all means do so. And so I have an intention that I would like for you all to speak, but I am going to do it myself, and then I'm going to give you the instruction for it so that you know what it is. I'm going to reverse that. I'm going to tell you what it is, do it myself, and then we'll go from there. So, what it is that you will say is that I and your full name give myself and whatever that place is. So for me, let's say it was my shoulder. I, Rae Karim, give myself and my shoulder permission to release the tension of grief. I, Rae Karim, am giving myself and my shoulder permission to release the tension of grief. Now, before you do that, I want to name this. One of the number one reasons for chronic disease is unresolved emotion. And so when we find that tension is in our bodies, in our shoulders, in our neck, in our back, in those places, it is actually our body letting us know that we need to release it, right? And so one of the things that I say in workshops that I do and to some of my grief coaching clients, I know my grandmother would say it, and I don't know if some of your grandparents or whomever may have said it, that it's better out than in. Now they didn't mean in the sense of the tension, but I'm gonna use it in that regard, right? That tension is so much better out than in, because one of the things that Reverend Lee named is that grief does show up in the body, but it may show up in your emotions, right? It may show up in the way that you are treating your children or your partner or people on your job. It may show up as being irritable or depressed or whatever that looks like. And so we have an opportunity now in this moment, in this space, to release it. And the beauty of it is you don't have to just do it here and now. When you feel that tension in your back, or when you feel that tightness in your chest or in your stomach, just gently place your hand on that area. Give yourself and that body part permission to release. So this is what this is going to look like. I don't want you to come off mute, but for those of you who are who are on camera, I would love to be able to see your lips moving. So you're going to say the statement 3 times fast, or not 3 times fast, just 3 times. I and your full name am giving myself and that body part, whatever it is, permission to release the tension of grief. And I will put this in the chat. And I would love for you to say that 3 times back to back. So I'm going to put this in the chat. Sorry, you guys, I put an asterisk next to your name and it decided to italicize it. And I was trying to make sure that that it stood out in a different way. So here we go.
If I may, I can hear someone saying, what's that gonna do? How's that gonna really help me right now in this season of my grief and this tension? Um, how is that supportive? And sometime, if I may just speak to that question, sometimes speaking directly over your own body and placing your hand on that part and giving yourself permission. Sometimes that's all the body needs in order to experience release, in order to experience an increase in capacity. Sometimes giving ourselves permission to feel, permission to speak, permission to use our voice, permission to uh, release a thing that's weighing us down. Sometimes, and that is all we need in order to smile again. Sometimes that's all we need in order to find a little bit of joy. Sometimes that's all we need in order to find a brighter pathway in this journey of grief. Sometimes giving ourselves permission plays the most pivotal role in the transformation and navigation of this grief process.
And I will add to that. Our brains are always going to do what is necessary to keep us safe and keep us comfortable, right? And so while we are used to going and doing and being and having the pain, and we're like, oh, I'll get to that at another time never comes. And it becomes this small pain. And then before you know it, it's a larger pain. And when you give yourself this permission, you are changing the narrative. So now your brain you're going to remind yourself like, oh, wait, I don't have to wait until, I don't have to do this at another time. I don't have to keep going. I just gave myself permission to release this, which is why I was sure to name that this is not just an exercise that you have to do now in the moment, but it is something that you can continue to do, that you can continue to use, to just give yourself permission, not just to release the tension of grief, but whatever that looks like for you, because we give other people permission, but how often do we give it to ourselves? And so I am going to flip our script just a little bit, Reverend Lee, because I heard you name joy. Rachel Cargle, who is the founder of the Loveland Foundation, which is a foundation that supports Black and Brown people as it concerns therapy. They offer vouchers for people to be able to receive therapy. She posted on her Instagram years ago that because we do not know when grief is going to show up, we have to be intentional about our joy. I'll say that again. Because we never know when grief is going to show up, when the pain, the tears, the sadness, the anger, the frustration, the shaking our fists at God, the asking the questions, because we don't know when any of that is going to show up, we have to be intentional about our joy. And you may be thinking to yourself, how can I be intentional about joy when my heart is aching, when my heart is broken, right? That is a very relevant question. And two things can be true at the same time. So, for example, I was in the airport yesterday. My flight got delayed, and there was this cute little 2-year-old boy walking around in the little area. He was on my flight too, with his bright green socks on, talking to his dad. And then he began to walk towards me, showing me the stickers that he placed all over his pants. And he just kept saying, Dee Dee, Dee Dee, talking to his dad. And I'm smiling at him. He's a toddler. So we're having this interaction. And I could have been upset about the fact that my flight was delayed by an hour. But instead, I was intentional about the joy that this 2-year-old little boy in his green socks brought me. And so joy does not have to be anything extravagant. It could be baking cookies or doing nothing, right? Like it could be watching a TV show or listening to music or, playing with your children or your pets or a night on the town or a night in, like whatever that looks like. What can you do to be intentional about your joy, even in the midst of grief? And so I would like for you to answer that question in the chat. What can you do to be intentional about joy? Or what is bringing you joy even in the midst of grief?
If I may, there's a brother that said, "I've learned more about love from grief than I have from romance." That made me think about how joy can show up in the midst of grief. Like, even though I lost this loved one, the joy that I'm able to tap into is that the community showed up for me. I mean, my bestie came through, dropped everything they was doing, pulled up to the crib and opened my door against my will and hugged me. That's something I can't forget. The joy of the joy that happens in the midst of those grief moments, uh, the ways that community can show up, the ways that I see grandchildren right now in the chat, the way the grandkids, I mean, kids have such a way of showing up for us. And if we are so big in our heads, like, I'm the parent, I'm supposed to be the one showing up for them, we might miss those moments where we ourselves can be filled and fulfilled in a divine way because God speaks through the kids as well. Mm. I see someone else in the chat um, speaking about birds. My goodness, to experience, I might even add in butterflies and owls for me. Uh, I go outside and I might see a butterfly rolling across my yard, and I'm like, "What up, Grandma? It's good to see you." You know, finding these pockets, and if we listen well enough, we might connect with that grievable thing in a fresh way. Joy.
Thank you all for sharing. Looking at these comments has brought me joy. Honestly, I say that very sincerely, looking at the things that are bringing you all joy. Continue to allow yourselves to revel in that, if I can say it in that way. And to be okay with finding new things that bring you joy, right? Because you never know. Like Reverend Lee said about the pockets of joy, and I actually typed in my notes the sprinkles of joy, right? Really quickly, when I was a little girl, I grew up eating Chico sticks. It's a coconut candy that my grandmother used to give us all the time. And the irony is because we were little, we couldn't ever get a whole one. She would split it between like three kids. Granny, it's really only gonna be a chew. Like, why is it that we have to split this Chico stick? So, when I was in Hawaii, I experienced grief there because my body just I got very sick in Hawaii. And I can remember coming from the farm or coming from a doctor's appointment, going to the pharmacy, and they had mini Chico sticks. And I think I purchased like 10 of them. And I sent a picture to my sister and I sent a picture to my cousin because that was something that brought me joy. I hadn't eaten a Chico stick or seen a Chico stick in years. And then to come back to the mainland, as the islanders call it, to find an actual large Chico stick at Five Below, right in walking distance to my place. Like that was something that brought me joy and I didn't even expect that to be. And so what I name with that is to be allow yourself to be surprised by joy. Allow yourself to be surprised by joy. And thank you, Reverend Lee, for what you said about, you don't have to, you can rest from being in your position, right? You can rest from having to be in the role that you are so used to. You don't want that to be something that distracts you from your joy or that deters you from your joy. So thank you, Reverend Lee, for naming that, right? Like, sure, I'm the auntie, but I love picking my nieces up and taking them to school and, dropping them off and picking them up when I'm not too tired because I know I am going to get a good laugh from them, right? And so, yes, I'm the auntie, but I also allow myself to be able to learn from them, to be able to engage with them in ways that are going to bring me joy. So just something for us to think about. One of the other things that Reverend Lee named was community. And you've kind of heard that throughout this evening about community. And one of the most powerful things about community is the support that community can lend us. The opposite side of that, the other side of that is we have to be willing to receive the support. And sometimes when we are in our spaces of grief, we are not always apt to receiving support because we are vulnerable, because we may be emotional. We may not want to be bothered. As Reverend Lee said, his friend pulled up and forcefully opened the door and gave him a hug, right? And so I offer this I don't want it to just be a suggestion. I offer this action, if you will, that when you find yourself in spaces where people are willing to support you, allow yourself to rest in that support, especially when you know that that support is safe, right? You are allowed to be safe in that space. You are allowed to be brave in that space. You are allowed to be vulnerable in that space. Sometimes support looks like sitting in a space with someone and being silent. Sometimes support looks like that hug that you didn't know you needed, or the compliment that you didn't even know you wanted. Sometimes support looks like, hey, you've been in the house for too long. We are getting out of here, or a walk in the park, or a phone call, a text message, whatever that looks like. Allow yourself to be willing, if you will, to be supported. Most times, I'd say 8.5 times out of 10, those who are wanting to support us have our best interests at heart, and they really do have good intentions in their desire to support. Now, does that mean that we always get it right? No, but it doesn't mean that we don't stop trying to be supportive and allowing others to support us. And so I have one last question. How can you be intentional with support? How can you be intentional with allowing yourself to be supported instead of saying, oh, I'm okay or I'll be okay? Sure, you're going to be okay, but are you okay in this moment? And are you okay with not being okay and with allowing someone to see you in that space? And so, my last question um, is what are ways that you can be intentional with support? You were first intentional with joy. How is it that you can be intentional with being supported?
The comments are rolling in, and this is beautiful. And This might be a difficult question to answer for some, because many here are the strong one in the family, and you're used to perhaps bearing the weight of all the pressures of life on your own shoulders and just pushing through. Okay. So maybe when we think about, well, what can support look like for me? If me is strong one in the family, that might be a difficult question to answer. So maybe we tap into giving ourselves permission once again to not be strong 24/7, 25/8, giving ourselves permission to not bear the weight of this entire situation, to not take the blame for everything happening around us. Yeah, Joanne, it's a thing, Joanna. It's a thing, 25/8. Okay. Um, Let me just push that a little further, that support can look like something very small. It doesn't have to be a vacation for 3 months. Shout out to everyone with a sabbatical coming up, but it don't have to be that big. It can be a short breath. It can be, I mean, there's a breathing technique, several of them that I might encourage. It can be a 4-2-8, a 5-2-10. And what I'm saying is you might breathe in, inhale for 5 seconds, hold it for 2 seconds, and exhale for 10 seconds. 17 seconds right there. Support can look like 17 seconds. Okay. Yes, it could be a gym membership. I encourage you to use it if you do get one. Yes, it can be, taking a walk, it's taking a run, but it doesn't have to be really intense, really big. Sometimes those smaller things, those intricate decisions, those much smaller decisions, like making the decision to brush your teeth. Sometimes brushing your teeth is a major piece of support for yourself. So look, and it might also help someone else. Look, come on, somebody. I hope you can feel me. No shame at all. Mhm.
I am so appreciative of all of the, I mean, like Reverend Lee said, I just looked up and the chat was just, it was rolling with ways of support. And I commend you all for allowing yourselves to acknowledge that that you may not have known what to do or what that looks like, knowing the ways that you can improve, if you will, on allowing yourself to be supported. Because I think as a society, we are good to have the question asked, "Are you okay?" and to say yes, so we can keep it moving, or whatever that looks like, right? Can I give you a hug? Or somebody put going for coffee, allowing people to take you to get something to eat, like whatever that looks like. Allow yourself to be supported. Why? Because you are deserving and worthy of support. Full stop, right? Beginning, middle, and end of the discussion. And I would add to that, especially if you are the person who is always supportive, please allow yourself to be supported, because when we allow ourselves to be supported, then it actually increases our capacity to be supportive, because we have a cup that we can pour out from, right? Because we're receiving it and then we can also give it. So thank you all. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Perhaps if we allowed ourselves to acknowledge our pain and allowed ourselves to be comforted by the rod and the staff spoken of in Psalms 23. Perhaps that's how we might experience the joy of green pastures and the joy of still waters. Perhaps.
And I was like, where did everybody go? Did that happen to anybody else that the screens went black? Or was that just me? I just looked up like, where did everybody go? Thank you, Reverend Lee, for naming that about the green pastures and still waters. In those particular verses, this is something that I have found myself using as I talk to people, depending on the audience, about grief. Um, the still waters, the green pastures, are foundations and pathways for our souls to be restored. Think about it. The text says, "The Lord is my shepherd; I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures." That's rest, right? He leadeth me beside still waters, right? That there is peace and rest so our souls can be restored. And so, our hope and our prayer is that in this blue service gathering, or this blue Christmas gathering, excuse me, as you have acknowledged what you are grieving, and maybe you couldn't name it all, and maybe you didn't put it in the chat, but it came up in your heart or it came up in your mind. That acknowledgement counts, right? And as you were able to acknowledge where it shows up in your body, and maybe you couldn't acknowledge it in this moment, but later on this evening or sometime tomorrow, it'll come up and you're like, oh, this is where that pain is. This is where that grief is. As you allowed yourself to place your hand on that spot and give yourself permission. What a bold move for you to give yourself permission to release that grief, not just today, but in the days and the weeks and the months to come, because your brain is going to remember this moment. So that means when grief shows up again in that part of your body, it won't be up. I gotta go and do this, or up. I can't give it the attention it needs. That your brain is gonna remind you. Wait a minute. On December 16th, 2025, right? You gave yourself permission for you to have been intentional, not only about joy, but also about support. Know that in all of these elements of this moment, you have allowed yourself to restore your soul, to be in a place of soul restoration. Does that mean that it's all complete now? No. Does that mean that we won't grieve after tonight? Absolutely not. But what it does mean is that we have the tools, we have practical tools to be able to help us move further along the journey. Knowing that our amazing and incredible God, the God of all comfort, is with us every single step of the way. Please know, I know that I can speak on behalf of myself and Reverend Lee, that we appreciate your time. We appreciate your participation in whatever way that looked. And we are holding prayerful space for you in this season.
You all for being here. If you did not register for our holiday soul care, that is happening in about 10 minutes. So if you are able to join us there, we look forward to seeing you again in just a few moments. Thank you all for being here. Grace and peace.